This video is sponsored by Control Plane. Previously on City Fast Fresh Deploys with Rust. I realized I posted cringe on the internet. Look at this. We're doing blue-green deploys. This thing is uploading things that are missing. It's making a new revision, generating a notification, which is reaching any web instances, which is downloading all the files, writing them to a temp directory, running Dino there, listening on one of two ports, and then routing all the traffic to the currently active deploy. So this one is running on AWS, this one is running on Azure, and this one is running on Google Cloud. And we can deploy to all three of these really fast. And the other thing is I can do deno task start. This is the local application, and I'm gonna make it do something useful. Let's find an API we can use. Free dictionary. That seems interesting. Audio, blah, 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 blah. Amazing. So let's look at our deno sources. So I think I want an input box. Can make this part of a form. Oh, params.name because it's name here. Okay, cool. So we're gonna rename that to Word, then make an API request, I guess. Data is an interface. What do we have in the data actually? We have an array. Cool. Result has word, which is a string, has phonetics. We can have Copilot generate that for us. Copilot is actually doing a decent job at this. You can see I'm using a sample payload, a search for the word hello, and I am checking manually anything that's generated by a large language model. You can see I have it open in the left split here. I had to give it a hint for synonyms and antonyms in the meaning interface because it just had me tabbing into the void. And there's other ways to generate this. If you have an open API specification, you can just generate actual correct things. But yeah, Copilot is decent at this. Do we have example? Oh, we don't have example. Cool. Okay, let's call that search. And then yeah, Q is going to be the query. Dictionary API, query is going to go there, and then data has results. So the first await gives us the response headers, and the second one gives us the response body, which we then deserialize as JSON. And now, so now this should have results in here. I was pretty confused about how the default exported greet component here would get the data that we just fetched in the handler above. So my reflex was to just stringify the whole thing as JSON and look at it in the browser, which led me to find out that it passes the params that are auto-generated from the route name and data as a field. Data, params, URL, routes, data. Okay, cool. Of course, I could have found that out by just control clicking on page props, which is important from server. And I'm making a mistake here that is going to lead me to have to cast props.data to something else because page props is actually a generic type. It has a type parameter named t that I should set to data, and I'm not doing that. The third param to stringify is the number of spaces to use while indenting it. So phonetics should probably be You know what? Let's let Copilot do all the work. Let's just fast forward for all of this and skip right over to the part where I need to do subtle fixes to the code that I generated. Usually closing braces and parentheses and all that is not great with Copilot. And here you can see me paying for my mistake. I have to do some manual casting because I didn't specify the generic type parameter of page props. So this is ugly for no reason, and you shouldn't have to deal with that. Cool. So watching me fix these mistakes by hand should give you a pretty good idea of the trade-off you're doing when you're using something like Copilot. You're trading writing code for reviewing and fixing code, and it's up to you to decide if that's worth it. Aha! Oh, we really don't have any basic styling. This is because of Tailwind. It absolutely is, and it's on purpose. They have a thing called Preflight, an opinionated set of base styles for Tailwind projects. The idea is to kind of erase differences between browsers. It removes default margins. It removes styles for headings, lists, images become block level and all that. It's so that you get kind of a neutral base, and then you add the Tailwind classes on top, and you get it looking exactly the way you want to. So audio source should really be an audio tag. At this point, I'm wondering why the audio element doesn't appear, and it's kind of subtle. You can see behind me there's an audio not controls display none rule that's built into the user agent style shit. I just need to add controls, which is what I do next.
Hello. Hello.
The third phonetics item only has IPA pronunciation as text. It doesn't have an audio field. Copilot didn't spot that, neither did I. Okay, margins. So to avoid rendering a bunch of empty lists, we have to check that they're not empty before rendering anything. This conditional rendering, it looks a lot like what you would do in React, for example. How do we do font weight? Font bold. Just learning Tailwind on stream, don't mind me. At least the search is pretty good on their website. Okay, but only if we do have an example. Both Copilot and I missed the fact that some fields are optional. In TypeScript, you'd use the question mark sigil, which would mean the type or undefined. Nice. There we go. You'll notice I'm spending a fair bit of time on margins, and that's because negative space is everything in design. Well, also hierarchy of font sizes, but yeah. There we go. Now this kind of looks like a dictionary page, you know, there's a lot of work to get there. But yeah, and then the homepage should just be a search thingy, I imagine. So dictionary, and then we don't want the image, make a form. Type search, name can be Q, target. This is wrong, but I'm going to realize that only later. Type submit. Told you it was wrong. It's posting to the same page instead of a different page. It's action. And now the app is technically feature complete. It works without any JavaScript in the browser. It's just pure HTML5 markup. You should check out enhance.dev, which is a cool new thing in that space. And then we don't need the counter anymore. You know, it would be nice. Now we could fetch it client side. We can have an API endpoint. There's a lot of things we could do, which we're not going to do. I just want to style that search button a little. We have borders maybe. There we have it. Oh, pre-designed button styles. You can see at the bottom, Tailwind is selling its UI package. I've used other things in the past with success. There's a Daisy UI framework that works pretty well. I was happy with it when I tried it. Perfect. Anything for Flex? I'm old enough to remember the time before Flex. When Flexbox came out, it was a huge deal layout-wise. Suddenly a lot of dirty workarounds weren't needed anymore. You could just set the direction, set the alignment, set the justification, and it all just worked. It was glorious. I'm struggling a bit to find the tailwind classes here, but I gotta say the naming is pretty intuitive. You can sort of guess the name of the classes you want. And also, I totally forgot that there's VS Code plugins for it, so they can help you with code intelligence to find what you're looking for. There we go. And we want a placeholder. Again, this is all just HTML5 markup. You have no idea the lengths people went to previously to get that same kind of placeholder effect on text input fields. It used to be so much worse. We complain now, but it used to be so much worse. The only issue here is that I'm adding it to the button, not the search input field. So, yeah. Center? Is that really centered? Oh yeah, I guess justify center. There we go. Okay, well, you know, it's something. Okay, what word should we look up? Coffee. There we go. A beverage made by infusing the beans of coffee plant in hot water. Meanwhile, back in production land, we still have these old versions of the app, but we shouldn't have to do a full deploy again. We don't even have to commit anything. We should be able to just do this. Okay, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this message that flashed on your screen and you thought I was going to sweep it under the rug, but you don't know me. So it's an upstream connect error or disconnect/reset before headers, reset, reason, connection, termination. This is 100% my fault, and I'm going to show you exactly what happened because Control Plane lets you explore logs on Grafana. So if we click this, it's going to open Grafana. It's now several days later, but I can still go back in time 5 days and see exactly what happened. So at 3:09 a.m. and 24 seconds, I know, it got the new revision notification. Within the same second, it determines what the latest revision is. So it's talking to the production Postgres database. It's downloading all 23 files, again, all within the same second. And then it immediately kills the old child process. So it kills the green deploy, which is the issue here. I took a bunch of shortcuts and we're not actually doing zero downtime deploys. We could. All we'd have to do is wait for, in this case, 4 seconds for the Deno or Dino app to actually be ready. But we don't. And so this is what happens in the meantime. We get an inbound connection and we try to route it to the blue deploy, which we just started, but it's not ready yet. So the connection is refused. And so the Rust app has nowhere to route our requests. And this is why we see this message here. It's because I was lazy. It's because I left you some exercises. You can fix that. And it's not that hard. All in all, the Rust part of the code, talking to Postgres, all happens within the same second, and then Dino takes about 4 seconds to fully warm up. Even though it already has all the dependencies, it's not downloading any additional dependencies here. Could we improve that? Probably. Again, it's only using 25 millicores. That's like 1/10 of a quarter of a core. So we could raise that a little, and that would definitely help. And they broke. And there we go. Haha. Nice. And these are also deployed. Yes. What should we define? Success.
Success.
Very nice. Don't let success go to your head. Well, that's it for me. All the code I've written in this series is available on GitHub. I have a link in the description and the pinned comment. There's a bunch of things that are easy to fix if you're planning on using this in production somewhere, but it's a good starting point if you didn't know where to start. Please consider supporting my work if it's been helpful to you, and as always, I'll see you next time, and take care.